we would like to invite the first speaker of the session, Dr. Pratibha Mache.
So, a very good afternoon, and post-lunch, I'm very surprised and happy to see this crowd. I thought that I will have only me and the chairpersons in the post-lunch area time, but it encourages me to talk more. So, thank you so much, and I really want to bring greetings from my hospital, that is JSS Medical College and Hospital, Mysuru, Karnataka. And I would like to thank the organizing committee for putting up such a wonderful show in Hyderabad, and the organizing chairperson, Dr. Uma Maheshwar and Nag Lakshmi, wonderful job. And I'm going to start with my presentation. I don't know what the take-home message you're going to take from the talk, because almost everything is known about this. But for myself, when I started preparing for this talk, there are a few things which had a wonderful revelations for me, and maybe I would like to share that with you. So, all of you know fibromyalgia is a very complex and heterogeneous condition with the predominant symptoms, that is a widespread musculoskeletal pain, the unrefreshed sleep, and the mood disturbances, the fatigue, which is a very predominant symptom, and the cognition dysfunction, which is also called as the fibrofog. It has an incidence of, like, one most important thing about fibromyalgia is there is a long road for recognition. And that's so true, because I recently had one of my fellows' friend from USA, and she visits every year. And then she came for one procedure for me, and then she was very happy that it had lasted for a year, and the physician there in US told that it is wonderful that you had 1 year of relief. And then what she shared with me, she said that I feel very disappointed that people don't recognize that fibromyalgia is an issue. People feel that this is like a functional problem. People feel that, why are you talking about this? I think it will be all right. I think it is all in your mind. So it's very sad that people don't recognize, and not about the general population, I'm talking about the physicians. So the diagnosis typically takes more than 2 years, an average of 3.7 physician consultations. Then only if somebody is knowledgeable and aware of this will diagnose this condition. So a brief about the epidemiology, it is 2 to 4% of general population. That's a huge incidence. Strong female preponderance in the middle-aged patients with a significant functional impairment and reduction in the work productivity. And we need to be aware that if we have patients who are with psychiatric problems like major depression and anxiety disorders, and some of the patients who are suffering from IBS, migraine, tension headaches, TMJ disorders and interstitial cystitis, you have a high, strong suspicion about fibromyalgia. All of us know about the pathophysiology. It's a central sensitization. Much talked about nowadays is the nociplastic pain, and there is an imbalance of neurotransmitter as well as there is a decrease in the pain modulation. It's important for us to understand this, because the drugs that we are going to use, the pharmacotherapy, is related to the understanding of pathophysiology. Now I'm going to talk about these EULAR guidelines. So we always thought that, okay, even now when I talk to people, I talk to few of my friends, and they said, no, this works very well. For me, this works well. But it is not about for me it works or for you it works. It is what is the data says or what the evidence says. And then we have the EULAR guidelines, which a multidisciplinary group from the 12 countries assessed and evidence with a focus on systematic reviews and meta-analysis. They identified 2,979 titles, and out of that, only 107 systematic reviews were considered eligible. And this 2017 EULAR update marked a paradigm shift using the grade system. The committee moved away from what we think to strictly what the data proves. And they had 4 recommendations, that is strong for, weak for, strong against, and weak against. So I'm going to take you through what are these grades and what are the recommendations that they have given. So this is the EULAR guidelines. I'm going to go into one by one. So the management pathway according to the EULAR guidelines says that the diagnosis and patient education is one of the very important steps, which is followed by the physical therapy and individualized exercise, which is the strong recommendation. If the patient education and the exercise is not sufficient, then reassess the patient. reassess and give a tailored approach to the patient, wherein if the patient is related with pain related to depression and coping, then go for the psychological therapies. If there is severe pain with the sleep issues, then go for the pharmacotherapy, which I'm going to talk about. And if there is a severe disability, then multidisciplinary rehabilitation. So as I said, the most important, the first step is the optimal management requires a prompt diagnosis, and providing the patient with the information about the condition is very, very important. So that's the first step, and you have to remember that you have to have a comprehensive assessment which includes the pain, functional and psychosocial aspects. And you have to involve the patient in decision making. Don't put it on the patient saying that this is what you have to. If there is a shared decision, then it is going to really work very well. So the strong for recommendation as per EULAR guidelines, exercise is the only strong recommendation, and it is superior safety profile compared to the pharmacological options. That means you have to remember the importance of exercise. The moment patient comes, what we are interested is writing the drugs and doing the interventions. I'm talking about the MIPSIs. But you need to remember there is no evidence for that. The evidence for even pharmacotherapy is modest. The only strong for recommendation is exercise. Please take home this message. And this can be in the form of aerobic training, it could be strengthening exercises, it could be land or aquatic exercises depending on what the patient prefers. And it will definitely improve the pain and the physical functionality. So what the advice you need to give to the patient, that you have to start low and go slow, because initially when the patient starts enthusiastically, the patient may land up into severe pain. Maybe they may discontinue the therapy. So it is very important, if they have to have a long-term effect, then they have to start low and go slow. Then other non-pharmacological therapies which has weak for recommendation or weak for grading. That includes the acupuncture, recommended for pain and fatigue, 20 to 30% improvement in pain with this. Then hydrotherapy and spa for improvement in the quality of life and pain. Then meditation like yoga and tai chi, and mindfulness. So you need to remember that weak recommendation implies that it may vary from person to person. It is not 100% it will work. 100% what works is exercise. But all these non-pharmacological therapy have weak for recommendation, and the evidence is less universal compared to the exercise. The diet and supplements, the diet which is rich in antioxidants and extra virgin oil, with the supplements like coenzyme Q10, acetyl, L-carnitine, all of them have been proven useful. Next coming is the weak for recommendation is psychological therapies, especially CBT. It is targeted in the patients with the mood disorders and patients who are catastrophizing. It has a modest long-term reduction in pain and disability. So even the psychological therapy and CBT has a better reduction or modest benefit compared to the pharmacotherapy. So coming to the pharmacotherapy, we need to remember that pharmacological success rates are rather modest, and high discontinuation rate is there in fibromyalgia patients due to the side effects and lack of efficacy. And the strategy is only if the non-pharmacological treatments is insufficient. Again, the same principle, that is start low and go slow. So you are seeing on the right side the effect size for the different drugs. So here, unlike what is been recommended by FDA, amitriptyline, which is an off-label drug in the low dose, has a 0.8 effect size, which is almost comparable to aerobic exercises. And you can see that duloxetine, pregabalin, and milnacipran, which we always think about, talk about, and so much discussion happens about these drugs when it comes to fibromyalgia, has an effect size of only 0.3 and 0.2. So now, the three approved drugs by the US FDA is pregabalin, duloxetine, and milnacipran. But the European Association refused to approve these drugs because of the modest efficacy and safety concerns. So this is for us to ponder upon that what we want to do. So now coming to when the patient has severe pain, the options and the non-pharmacological options have been insufficient, then we can use drugs like SNRIs, that is duloxetine and milnacipran, pregabalin amongst the gabapentinoids, and tramadol is the only opioid, which is recommended, that is a weak for recommendation when you are using, when you want to use, these drugs are not effective or you want to use an adjuvant therapy. So coming to the drugs one by one, pregabalin, it is one of the drug which is best used in patients with the predominant sleep disturbance and comorbid anxiety. So here you can start it with the dose of 25 to 75 milligram HS, and then it can be increased weekly to the maintenance dose of 150 to 1600 and the maximum dose of 350 to 450 milligrams. So it gives a good pain reduction, but again you need to remember approximately 33% of the initial responders lose the therapeutic response by 6 months. So you have to be aware of these things, that when you start a drug, they are not going to work indefinitely. You can't think that it worked last 6 months, so it is going to work now also. So the adverse effects, we all know, you have to be very careful and you have to tell the patient about the edema, weight gain and the dizziness. And you have to always start this at a bedtime. The next drug is duloxetine. This is used in patients with the comorbid depression or anxiety and significant fatigue, as well as with the peripheral neuropathic components. Start with the dose of 30 milligram once daily for a week, increase to 60 milligram once daily for next, and then assess the efficacy and the maximum of 120 milligram per day. Again here, the 42% achieve more than 30% reduction. So I want you to remember these figures. So 30% reduction is actually, we don't even consider it as a very good relief, but that's what the efficacy is there for with these drugs. So that's why we have for the pharmacotherapy, there is a modest evidence. It is not a very great evidence for pharmacotherapy. Consistent evidence of modest efficacy. And again, you have to be cautious, monitor the BP elevation and sexual dysfunction. The next drug is the milnacipran, which is best used in patients with predominant fatigue and cognitive dysfunction, which is also known as a fibrofog. Initially start with 12.5 milligram once daily on day 1, then increase to 12.5 milligram BD on day 2 and 3, and then to 25 milligram BD for day 4 and 7. And here you have to, renal adjustment is required if the creatinine clearance is low. It shows a modest but consistent improvement in pain, fatigue, and physical function. You have to be aware of the side effects, like it should be avoided in uncontrolled hypertension and patients with the cardiac issues. The next drug is amitriptyline. I just want to say that amitriptyline is one drug which I think almost all the pain physician use, but this has an off-label, very good evidence in fibromyalgia. So it is used in patients with pain accompanied by the sleep disturbance as well as fatigue. It is started in a very low dose of 5 to 10 milligram, and you can go up to 25 milligrams strictly given at bedtime. And it has been shown as a superior efficacy at 25 milligram compared to placebo, and compared to even some of the FDA approved drugs. And with an effect size of 0.8, this is very important, one of the drug which has the highest effect size. And we know the side effects, you have to be careful in patients with the cardiac disorders because it can cause QT prolongation. So the additional drug, this is about the drugs which are mainly used, but additional drugs that we use include the gabapentin, the cyclobenzaprine, and the tramadol. Here it has to be tailor-made, as I've already told, it has to be tailor-made as to when pain is associated with sleep disturbance, pain is associated with mood disorder, or pain is associated with fatigue. Depending on that, you will choose the pharmacotherapy. Now, this was weak for. The next is weak against. Interventions include the pharmacological drugs like NSAIDs, SSRIs, and MAO inhibitors, and the non-pharmacological like massage, biofeedback, and hypnotherapy. The emerging therapies include the cannabinoids, which is much talked about nowadays, and the low-dose naltrexone and ketamine. But cannabinoids have promising for effect for the nociplastic pain, but they lack the standardized dosing, and there is a risk of anxiety and cardiac issues. Low-dose ketamine infusions, they are very good. I do use very commonly in my practice, but as it is told here, the same, you don't have a long-term effect. You may have to repeat it repeatedly, and again there are problems of interstitial cystitis as well as the addiction potential. Then low-dose naltrexone, it is gaining attention for neuroinflammation, but there are conflicting results. So coming to the end, the most effective treatments are exercise, education, and CBT requires active patient participation, shifting away from the passive drug consumption. Identifying the patient's characteristics that predict the response to specific therapies and researching synergistic effects. Treatments must demonstrate a significant impact on the quality of life, not just the single symptom. So, overall, the sum is greater
Time
than
is
the parts.
up.
So, I'm almost done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's
Already
the
late.
last one, and this is the last slide. We have start with the education and exercise. That's the only strong recommendation. Stop strong opioids and corticosteroids, and tailor the drug for the specific symptoms, and partner with the patient for long-term quality of life. Thank you so much.